One of the most popular topics anybody asks for on our channel is supplier controls. So it's a supplier quality agreement, registration for the importer, registration of the contract manufacturer. What are the roles and responsibilities? Who does what? Who has to pay? What agreements need to be in place? Who has to do reporting? Who doesn't have to do reporting? That stuff gets asked over and over and over again. But I think ultimately the problem is that nobody's ever shown you how to write a supplier quality agreement. There's not like a section in the back of the standard that says, here's an example of a supplier quality agreement. Most people that negotiate supplier quality agreements are looking at it from a contractual side of who's going to pay what money. And are we going to have exclusive distribution rights to this territory? Or they're worried about liability. What the supplier quality agreement is supposed to cover from a regulatory standpoint is who is responsible for what quality system requirements and regulatory requirements that are in the ISO 1345 standard and in the applicable country regulations. So if you're selling it in the US, the FDA regulations. Who's responsible for what? And guess what? There are going to be a few things that are shared that you just can't do all by yourself. You just can't. So we're going to walk you through how to document that. And so the real question here that we're trying to cover is, how do you create a supplier quality agreement? And the first thing that everybody does is they pull out a Word document. Now, first of all, Microsoft has been playing around with my computer this week, and I'm not really happy with them. So we're going to use Google products today. Second of all, we're not going to use a Google Doc. We're going to use a Google Sheet. We're going to use a spreadsheet because you can sort the list. You can compare the list. If you fill it in a spreadsheet, then you can take, here's the information for supplier 1, here's the information for supplier 2, supplier 3, and compare them in columns, side by side. And that's not something you can do with a Word document in a table. So being an engineer, I'm very comfortable with this. You might not be a Google person. That's okay. You can do this with an Excel spreadsheet too. Or if you're really old, you might remember those other tools that we had that were spreadsheets too, that it pre-existed Excel. But I'm going to show you how to do it right on my screen, real time, for some specific examples, the harder ones. I'm not going to give you the easy ones. I'm going to give you the harder ones that most people struggle with. So let me share my screen. Actually, I think that's the right one. Yeah, that's the one I want to share. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to give this a name. And so we're going to call this supplier quality agreement demo. And we'll even give it a date, 9/5/2025. Okay, so that's the first thing that we're going to do. And it's a Google Doc. I can share it with a whole bunch of people. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to share this, make it shareable with everybody. So share with others. I'm going to say that it's anyone with a link. So when we're done, we will copy this link to our mobile channels so everybody can see it. Oh, it says my birthday's coming up. Isn't that nice? So you'll be able to click on this link and download exactly what I did, so you don't have to email me to ask for it. But if you want me to answer questions about iterations of this, please don't inundate me with a whole bunch of meetings to ask, well, what about this scenario? Well, what about this scenario? Call Lindsay Walker or schedule up a call with her using our Contact Us page and schedule a meeting with her, and she'll give you a hourly consulting proposal and be happy to help you with supplier quality issues. But it is product specific, and getting 3 or 4 meetings in a row to answer all your questions and doing that for free, it really isn't fair to all the people that are existing customers that need my time too. So please, if you want help with this beyond what I'm doing in the training, just schedule a call with Lindsay and set up a contract with us, and we'll be happy to help you. And we have a lot of people that can help you, including auditors that audit this stuff. Okay, so here we go. I already put the name in there. I'm going to share the link with everybody. It's going to be put in the details down below. But the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to put some stuff on the top for what we're going to talk about. So the function or requirement is what we're going to put in the first column. The next, oh, it's not big enough for you, so we got to do something about that. We'll just change the size of the page here. We'll go to 150%, so that should help. Number 2, we're going to put the OEM. Next, we're going to put the contract manufacturer. And next, we're going to put shared. Okay, and we don't have nearly enough room here, so we're going to make this bigger. We're going to go out to like there. Whoop, we went too far. So we're going to make it like twice the size. Maybe a little bit bigger still. There we go. And now I had eight different areas that I promised I was going to cover. So I'm going to copy those in here right now. Paste, done. I copied it right out of what was online. I just did a paste values only, and I had to specify these 8 columns or 8 rows so it would go in the right place. So now we have to define who does what. So OEM will say they are registered with the FDA as the specification developer, and they have the 510K, and it's their name on the label. Now, there could be a whole bunch of other possibilities, and I know you won't want me to answer all those questions. Set up a contract with Lindsay. So in this hypothetical scenario that happens all the time, specification developer, 510K holder, name on the label, you're going to be responsible for design controls because that's what specification developer is. So you're going to do that. So that's the owner. Okay, you're the owner of that. The contract manufacturer, not owner. Okay. And then shared. NA. Okay. So you have owner, or you have not owner, or you have NA. Now, design changes. So we have owner. So what if the supplier suggests an improvement? With this supplier that we were using is obsolete. They're going out of business. Let's say the Tyvek plant blew up and we want to buy a flexible pouch from somebody else, maybe in another country. So it's suggested by the contract manufacturer, here we recommend this. So this could be shared. So we'll say it's shared. And we'll say this is shared. So now describe the sharing. So either party can suggest changes, but both companies must approve change. OEM is responsible for regulatory approval of changes if needed. Okay, so that's a lot of information that goes way off the page. One of the things you can do here is you can wrap the text. So I go up here to wrapping, and I will wrap the text. So now it all fits there. Very easy to do. It doesn't always work that nicely when you're working in a table in a Word document or a Google Doc. So that's one of the other reasons why I like to do it here. So that gives you an example. That's the kind of detail you need. If you want to go for brownie points here and really make it clear, you might even say which procedure is used and which form should be used. Or what section of the procedure you should look at for design changes. So over here, I could even put like what it is. If both companies have a design change procedure, I could put, like in this one, I could say, this company, it's SYS 006, which happens to be the one for our company. This one here is SYS 008, But over here, we're going to say NA, because they don't have one. But they do have a design change procedure that tells them to notify and get customer approval before they make changes. So this might be SOP 002 or 3. So it helps to put the document number in there so you're aware of what is the procedure, and that's valuable information when you're an auditor doing a supplier audit. You want to make sure you have those details so you know what documents to ask for, what records to ask for, and what the roles and responsibilities are. So give yourself these little breadcrumbs along the way, and it'll really help you out. Now, medical device file. This was formerly known as the DMR, Device Master Record. It was 21 CFR 820.181. That's going away as of February 2nd in 2026 because the FDA is incorporating by reference ISO 1345. So what you should be looking at here is this would be, and maybe that's another thing I should be putting in here. So we want clause 7.3.1. Here we want 7.3.9. Here we want, and you could write all the other subclauses like 2, 3, 4, whatever. You could break it all down. There's nothing wrong with that. But the medical device files, there are two different places you want to be looking here. But specifically 4.2.3 is the medical device file. The 7.3.10 is for the entire design history file. They don't call it a design history file. It's the technical documentation for your entire design history there. But even though it could be your technical file, even though it could be your medical device file, I would differentiate it. The original approved version, the master version that you create at the very end of your design transfer process, that's 7.3.10. The sharing it with your supplier, here's the version that they're supposed to be following. I would think of 4.2.3, but those two are inextricably, so if you want to use both, I think that's fine. But they're slightly different wording, but they're very, very similar, and you really can't do one without the other because you need them both. So if it makes people feel better that I include the other one, we'll include that other one here too. 7.3.10. Oh, and I got an extra bracket. So, I need it a little bit wider. So it's a little bit wider now. Now, who is going to create this? The OEM is the owner. And the procedure here is going to be SYS 053. When I list these numbers, those are Medical Device Academy. So if you buy our turnkey quality system, that's the number you want. But the OEM, that's going to be not owner. And this is going to be a document of external origin. And so that should actually be covered under their document control procedure. And so that might be i.e. SOP 001. And of course it doesn't fit, so we're going to wrap again. So you want to tell them what procedure controls that. How do you keep track and control in your document system for your quality? How do you keep track of when we give you a medical device file for our company? Is there confidential records? Do you have to create your own version? No. It's a document of external origin. I gave it to you. You have to keep track of versions that I give you. So if I make a change, I communicate it to you. You confirm back, yes, I got it. We're putting it in our documents of external origin, and here's our procedure that controls that. So here I would say OEM creates, communicates to contract manufacturer and confirm, and contract manufacturer confirms changes. or change, I guess, receipt. Now, are all of the changes that you're making, and I'll probably should put all three of these wrapping. What about when you have a manufacturing work instruction? Or what if you have a packaging work instruction or an inspection work instruction where the supplier, the contract manufacturer, did all the work? You're still the owner as the OEM because you're the specifications developer. So they would, so instead of, it could be instead of OEM creates, it could be contract manufacturer creates, OEM approves. And then you can delete that part about communication because the contract manufacturer created and gave it to the OEM. And so OEM approves, and then last but not least, and OEM determines or includes in MDF, medical device file. So that could be another situation. So then in that, this is going to be a shared one. And then maybe instead of documents of external origin, instead they're going to have, this is going to be a manufacturing work instruction. So let's say it's SOP 12. Or let's say it's something else, 7. And we'll say it's shared. So that's how you do that one. Process validation is probably the number one area that I see neglected by contract manufacturers. My favorite one is they have a procedure, they did installation validation or an IQ of the equipment, but they only do OQs and PQs if the customer paid us to. That's not compliance. Both parties have to know who's doing it. It's like, it's their fault. That's not how it works. So process validation, you could say, is shared. So this could be SYS 014 is ours, and shared SOP, let's say 8. And you would say supplier responsible for IQ, OQ, PQ is shared, and must be added to medical device file by OEM. So that's the kind of details you want in that shared column. Okay, now I'm going to give you a different scenario. I was on the phone earlier today with Rick Stockton. If you don't know who Rick Stockton is, go on our Google channel or our YouTube channel and type in Rick Stockton. Go on our website, type in Rick Stockton. You should see one of the videos where I did an interview with him. Rick and I were talking about a product, a medical device that one of our clients has. They're buying it from a company that's in Asia. And the supplier measures it with a caliper. And I don't think I have my calipers handy. I think they're upstairs. But they measure it with a 6-inch caliper. First of all, this particular part is made of plastic, and it's really, really small. That's the wrong tool for the job. You will crush the part, and you will get a different measurement, a smaller measurement, the more you crush it. It's plastic. It squishes. If it were made of rubber, it would really squish. So it would even deform maybe even more than to half the size. So that's a major, major change in the dimension of the part. So calipers are the right tool for the part if the part is hard enough and won't deform when you squeeze it with a caliper. But if the amount of force you can put on it with a caliper just by rolling that little thumb wheel is greater than the amount of force to compress the part, that's the wrong tool for the job. So Rick was like, all you have to do is take this part, drop it on a optical measurement system, and it will automatically measure the whole part. And very, very little work. We can take 25 parts, just boom, 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 measure them all. The part doesn't even have to be straight, he says. I can tell you with that system what the dimension of the part is for an OD. I can take all these measurements along here in seconds. For a curved part, in the nominal, what the median, what the mean is, what the standard deviation is along the part. And then I can do it for 25 more samples. No problem in seconds. Like put one on, put two. Some systems you can put all the parts on the table at the same part and label them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with a Sharpie. Put them on the table, measure them all at once. And it can measure little tiny details that you and I can't see, particularly me, because I don't have great eyes anymore. So you can measure these parts and come up with what your standard deviation is, what your mean is, what your median is. And you can use that to create your dimensions and your tolerances for your drawings. So you make some prototype parts and you figure out what the standard variation is in these parts, and then you incorporate that information into the drawings. And if you're trying to do some validation, during the OQ process, the OQ is when you find out what the variability of the process is before you write your acceptance criteria for the PQ. Because the PQ is going to be done at the nominal conditions, and you got to be within your acceptance criteria. The OQ is where you get to play and figure out what is the acceptable variation likely to be here. And if the process isn't anywhere near where I need it to be, I'm going to have to come up with a new process. But a lot of times it's just, we'll be fine with that amount of variation. Now I have to revise the drawing because the process doesn't meet what I thought we could meet. So don't approve your drawings before you've done an OQ. Approve your drawings after you've done an OQ, before you've done the PQ, because the drawing is the acceptance criteria for the PQ. Got it? And your inspection method has to be validated, like a gauge R&R study. So that's what Rick is helping this client with. They're using calipers. They should be using an optical gauge system that's non-contacting for squishy plastic parts. Anything silicone, use that. Anything that's a catheter, you don't want to scratch your catheters up. You don't want to cause all kinds of problems with that catheter. And wear gloves, put it on the table, measure. Okay? I'm going to see if there are any comments here. Nope, no comments. Anyway, I wanted to make sure you understand that background there of process validation. But this particular company, they have an inspection method that's not valid. So the inspection procedure, we have incoming inspection here. That's going to be shared. Our inspection method is going to be 033 for receiving inspection. Theirs might be an in-process inspection that they're going to be doing. They might also be doing raw material inspection. So they might have two procedures. So it's shared, and they're going to have, let's say, work instruction 5 and work instruction 2. Okay? And OEM sends one sample per lot to third party for verification and performs basically a trend analysis, but using a run chart. Chart and contract. I'll say CM for contract manufacturer because that's a common acronym, and you would put that in your agreement that throughout all this documents, CM means contract manufacturer. So we'll say the CM performs incoming inspection of raw materials, in process inspection, and final inspection using AQL 1.0, C equals 0. Okay? So that's the kind of level of detail we would have. Or according to this drawing, the drawing could have an inspection criteria right on it. The first page is the part, and the second page is the inspection criteria. You could even have a data collection form on the second page. That's done sometimes. Sometimes they have it all in an electronic EQMS system, and they just click the button on the caliper and it automatically sends it there. And you can attach a report from an optical system, an optical gauging system, or one of these fancy, I forgot what the name of them is right now, but the machines that automatically go around and measure the parts with a robotic arm. You could have one of those systems. So depending on what the part is, you want to specify in the drawing what the measurement method is, what the criteria is, what the work instruction is, what training is required, what AQL should be used. That's the kind of stuff you need. So specifying in the, now, why would I specify a run chart, and why would I be doing anything? Well, these are finished parts that are good and I could sell them. So I don't want to destroy a whole bunch of product, making sure my supplier is doing their job. I want to trust them, but I want to verify. I also am looking, this is very important, I'm looking for shifts in the mean. So by doing a run chart, if I see a trend, I see noise, ooh, noise. You had a process shift. What did you change? Change the supplier, change the spec, had tool wear. What happened? New operator on second shift that didn't follow directions? What is it? But you're only going to see that if you're doing a trend. So we ask people to do, when they get these flexible film Tyvek pouches, do peel tests. You do them at the beginning of the lot, you do at the end of the lot, you take samples, you take retains, whatever your policy, but you're supposed to be trending that so you can see when there's a shift. Ooh, there's something going on wrong with these pouches. Maybe it gradually changes over time. That could say maybe we're seeing wear on the sealer, or maybe we're seeing the pouches are getting old and the adhesives wearing out and just not viable anymore. So at a certain point we say, no, we're getting too close to our threshold for acceptability. Stop using these pouches. Get a new lot. Or something's happening on the manufacturer. We need to fix that. But if you don't have a trend data that you can look at, a run chart where you can see that trend over time, you don't know what's really going on. Just looking at a table of data, it's data. Seeing a graph of data, you can see what's happening over time. It's a great practice for anybody doing CNC machining. They know when to adjust the offset and adjust the tool or change out the tool. The next thing I have is batch records. So this is not going to be, so this is going to be retain, you're going to retain copies as requested. And this is going to be owner. So they're going to, the supplier is going to have the batch records, and they're going to have some procedure there. We'll just say SOP because I'm getting tired of writing SOP numbers. So we'll say, you know, whatever the contract manufacturer has for the procedure, they're going to put that down there. They're going to be the owner, and you're going to ask for copies of that. And you might want to specify, do you want digital? So you could say compressed PDF, please. Okay. And over here, retention period, or when supplier reaches retention period end, notify OEM and transfer hard copies to OEM if requested. So the reason why I say this, a lot of companies will have periods of retention for 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is. If you're an implant manufacturer, let's say your customer is J&J or somebody, or Zimmer, one of these implant companies that has a retention period of 99 years, which I've seen before. If your retention period for an implant is 99 years for those records, your supplier may not be around that long and definitely doesn't want to keep records for a batch record that long. So the right way to finesse the differences is not to force your supplier to keep their records forever. Number one, ask them to scan the documents and send you PDFs, then you don't care what they do with them because you have a copy. You can keep it for as long as you want. Number two, if they get to the end of the period of time for the hard copies, they could transfer the hard copies to you, or they could ask your permission, is it okay to throw them out now that you have a copy? So, or you could even have a policy of we're going to destroy the records once we've confirmed that the scan has been uploaded and stored in the right location. That's another way to do it. So lots of ways to finesse that. Shipping. So this is where I would put Incoterms for shipping. So if you don't know what Incoterms are, go get your supply chain manager and he'll explain it to you, or she'll explain it to you. Incoterms you can also look up on Google, but this is where I would put your Incoterms. So this might be liability policy is OEM, but FOB terms is supplier's location. So FOB, freight on board, that's an Incoterm. You're responsible for it at the time it ships from their facility to yours. You're responsible for it. They're only responsible for it from the time it is in their facility to the time it gets on a truck at their facility. Then it's no longer their responsibility unless you specify different FOB terms. But a lot of times companies are like, well, who's responsible for the product? Who's going to cover freight losses? Things like that. Who's going to cover recalls? Usually it's the person, the OEM that has their name on the product. They're usually responsible. They have to have a liability insurance plan. And usually they indemnify the contract manufacturer and list the contract manufacturer on there. So that's what you want. And that's why you're supposed to be doing these supplier audits, to make sure the supplier is worth insuring. Or do you want to stop working with them? So that's stuff that you want to make sure. And then the supplier should have, owner, procedure, and records. Okay. And it depends on what shipping we're talking about. We could say this could be for Asia to USA. But you could have another line for shipping that is USA to customer, hospital. So different set of rules. NA for the contract manufacturer, 100% you. And then over here, you might want to explain this, not applicable to domestic shipping to customers. And have another line not applicable to customer or supplier to customer or supplier to OEM. And then the distribution records, this is NA for the supplier or the contract manufacturer, and the owner is the OEM. Okay? And nothing shared over here. If you're going to do it this way, then you probably are located in the US, you're the specification developer, comes to you, and then you distribute it. But it could be, let's say you're a German company and you're having the parts manufactured in China. So the Chinese company is the contract manufacturer, and they might drop ship it directly to the US instead of shipping it through Germany, which would be excessive and expensive. Instead, they ship it directly to your initial importer in the US. So now you have to add a third column to your table, or at least make a note here that that's the distribution records are for the importer, not for the OEM or the contract manufacturer. So that could be your situation. So you got to spell all this out. I'm over time here a little bit. And of course, it's not sharing anymore. I don't know why. Huh. I don't know how long we weren't sharing for there. I apologize. I'll have to go back and look at the video and see where it stopped sharing properly. But what I was trying to show people here is, here's the different places. Here, this first column is what the OEM's responsibilities are right here. This column here is for the contract manufacturer's responsibilities. This column here is what's shared. In here, each of the requirements, and you can go clause by clause. Like this one here is 7.5.6. And this next one, final inspection here, this is going to be 5.1, I believe. And the batch records, I think, is also 7.5.1. And shipping here, I don't remember what that one is. Preservation of product is probably 7.5.11. So you have different clauses for everything. Distribution, I think, might also be under shipping, so 7.5.11 for that one as well. But you gotta put what the requirement is over in this column, what the OEM's responsibilities are, include the procedure there, the contract manufacturer, include their procedures and work instructions and form, and then add more detail about the share. Don't be cryptic. Don't put just minimal detail to keep your document short. You're going to print it as a PDF and save it somewhere anyway. So just use the space, let it automatically wrap and expand to whatever space is needed. Don't worry about whether it fits in your table and having to adjust the size of the rows. That's why I changed it to wrap. And that's the part of the reason why I do this in Excel. And then I can copy a whole column very easily over to a new supplier, and I can easily take out clauses that apply and don't apply. So, and you can sort again, like okay, this supplier only needs these clauses. So use that to the best of your ability. But this didn't take us that long, even with all my talking and going fairly slow and explaining step by step. We still are at 35 minutes here. It's not that hard to do this. So people that take weeks coming up with a supplier quality agreement, just do it this way and you'll be so much happier. If you have additional questions about this, look at the other videos we've done on supplier quality agreements and talk to Lindsay Walker about getting an hourly consulting agreement, and we'd be happy to help you on your specific supplier quality agreement. I hope that helps, and we'll put the link below in the description for our YouTube channel. See you later. Bye-bye.